Hey, 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 it's Rebecca, and you're listening to Resilient by Design. Today, I have some really fantastic guests. They share my passion for systems and process and are all about growing your business in a very intentional, smart way. Abagail and Emylee are the business fairy godmothers behind Boss Project, and they're the hosts of a chart-topping podcast, The Strategy Hour. They became internet famous for a program called Trello for Business, and they have now moved into offering a multitude of programs for business owners, creative entrepreneurs, and I think what's incredible about our conversation today is that we cover so many topics in depth, and they have such a, I don't know how to word it, like such a really realistic approach that is also sensitive to the economy that we are finding ourselves in. If you are looking to grow your business and you're feeling like, but the world's changing a little bit, shouldn't that affect me? This conversation is for you. We dive into all things economic times, having a single service offering, not offering a smorgasbord of offers, which I feel strongly about, among many other topics. So guys, dive right in and enjoy this episode. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. All right, welcome to the podcast, Emylee and Abagail, the bosses.
Hello, thank you for having us.
I'm so excited to have you guys here. Not only are you a pretty big deal, and I want to talk about that, but I think your story and what you do is super inspirational to designers. So before I dive right in, why don't you just share with my audience who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah. Well, I'm Abagail, and this is my partner.
Hello, I'm Emylee.
And we're the co-founders of Boss Project. And we started this business going on 7+ years ago. And we're doing what we've always been doing, and that we are trying to partner with more women in business, more femmes in business who are really striving to create financial security and stability in their own lives. And so a lot of what we're doing is baked in financial literacy, but also so much of it's focused on the business strategy required for you to create a strong foundation and really build a business that isn't just growth oriented, but also stable and long lasting and legacy building. And our mission is really rooted in helping more women create the financial security and needs that they have to build ultimately a business life first. And so we love partnering with other designers similar to your audience. That's where we started. My background's in design, Emily's background's in photography. And so having a creative lens on everything we do is absolutely a part of our world.
Yeah. And we do a lot of that through free resources like our own podcast or content on our blog that's been around for like 7 years. We also have a lot of done with you offers. So within our program, the Incubator, and then done for you services behind the scenes where our team comes in and implements things that have been on your to-do list for a while or behind the scenes of your business that don't seem as sexy or as fun. We come in and create those systems for you so you can scale.
Yes, designers are going to love that. Most of us are like, can I just hire someone to do this for me? Like, I don't want to DIY it.
Yeah.
I get that question all the time from the designers in our community. Can you like just tell me who? Well, now I know. Now I've met you. Now I can say, hey, go to these girls.
Yeah. I love working with designers because y'all have you have the creative eye. So I don't have to convince you that it's worth making something pretty. And we will make something pretty because we come at it from a design eye, but we also come at it from a very strategic standpoint of we know what actually is optimized for your prospects and the funnel of your prospects. And so we're always top of mind of like, once it's beautiful, how is it actually functional in a way that can make you more money? And so I'm obsessed with working with designers because they don't need to be convinced that it needs to be pretty. We got that.
Oh no. If anything, we obsess a little bit too much about the pretty.
Yeah, we might need to work on letting go of some of that perfectionist mindset, which is also something we tend to have to work on with y'all.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And that's going to take a lifetime, I figure, because I think I'm like a recovering perfectionist. And just when I feel like I'm through it, I catch myself.
Something else sparks.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so much about letting it go as embracing it as an opportunity, but that's a lesson for another day.
Ooh, I like that. Embracing it without obsessing over it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to dive into all things. I feel like you've got so much to share where you talk about, and I feel like a lot of what you share is a lot of what I talk about with my design community, which is having like one signature service is a big thing. I talk about like having one core offering, and like, how can you grow your revenue? But before we get into all of that of scaling your business and all that juicy jazz, like, what's your deal? How did you, like, I was doing a little research and learning a little bit about you ladies, and you started with your own marketing business. Did you join forces together and decide, hey, we're going to do branding and marketing for creatives? Or what was that journey to then teaching?
Yeah. So our journey together was pretty cumulative of both doing and teaching. We both had our own service-based businesses before we knew each other. I was in the photography landscape. Abby was in the design. So doing branding, marketing, website design, that kind of stuff. For just whatever clients were sent her way, whatever clients were sent my way. I was doing photos for families and lifestyle, but I was also starting to kind of transition into working with local content creators and bloggers in my community and offering kind of social media marketing planning in general. I just really loved telling people what to do. I would listen to podcasts or I would listen to trainings and I would turn around and say, here's what I think you need to do differently in your business. And I was obsessive over really teaching strategy and talking strategy with other business owners. We ultimately met in a Facebook group for small business owners who were online, who kind of had a similar audience. And so we were put in this little pod together and really connected because while I was living in a different state at the time, we grew up not that far apart from each other and just didn't know it. And she was actually utilizing my family-owned print shop for her own printable marketing services. So when she would need to print business cards or flyers or posters or whatever, she would use this little print shop in Independence. And my family literally owns that print shop. And we didn't know it at all for years. And so we came together through the internet and realized we had a lot of connections and decided to meet each other like 2 weeks after meeting online. I drove to Kansas City and I stayed at her house and we hung out and we just really connected and ultimately decided to start selling together. I had a course at that time specifically geared for photographers and pricing and selling strategies. She put her own spin on it and we opened it up a little bit more to creatives in general. We didn't want to just niche down to photographers. So we rebranded it, resold it, and loved doing that together. Ultimately, that wasn't a big enough business right then on its own. So we decided to pair our services together and basically open a marketing boutique that offered bigger packages. So she would sell a website package and add on my photography services for that website, copywriting, etc. So we combined services, started working with clients in the Kansas City and the Tulsa market, and just did that together for like 6 or 8 months until we were like, let's go all in on educating and creating digital content and creating courses and creating a podcast and creating curriculum and all of that stuff that really, really excited us. So we focused solely on that for like 5 or 6 years. And then in the last year and a half-ish, have really opened up our agency arm again to do more done-for-you services. We were taking a look at what the market was requiring of us and what we wanted to do and what sounded fun again. And so we have a pretty fun split now of what feels like educational strategy and bigger marketing spaces, and also our very intimate relationships with our clients where we're behind the scenes in their business getting stuff done.
So cool. I love, okay, there's a few things that I think designers are going to like from what you just said is that you, first of all, you met online. It's not like you grew up together and you were like besties. I was wondering that.
No. We always say we were business partners first and then became friends. Now it's more like we're married and run a business together, but it's definitely a unique partnership, but we didn't have an existing relationship before we started working together.
Yeah. And I think that's really great. Like, I think that also just goes to show other entrepreneurs that you never know. You never know who you're going to meet. And there is some beauty in social media and the internet still, even though we're in a weird place right now, it's still a wonderful place to connect with other like-minded individuals.
100%.
So much. Yeah. And so much of what, my podcast is about and my events and my courses, it's about collaboration over competition. And I think you guys are a perfect example of that, in that you didn't see each other as competition. In fact, you looked at each of you had different strengths.
Yep.
Hey, why don't we combine these? Because there's so much more power with being two of us.
And I think we recognized that we probably would have ended up being competition. We had too many overlapping interests, and that we knew that we'd end up running very parallel companies, and we thought we'd get a lot further faster together. And so we decided to not compete. And it was one of the better decisions we've made.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, I know that it can be scary going into a partnership with someone else.
Oh, yeah.
I have designers say to me all the time, like, maybe I should partner with another designer.
Nope. So here's the big caveat is so we were business partners first, and then our friendship developed. And yes, now we are fully committed and married. And we actually just left a strategy meeting, just her and I in person, where we're dreaming and scheming up 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future of what we're doing together, because we do have such a magical relationship together that there's no reason to not capitalize on that. And we actually enjoy each other's company and bring a lot to the table in different ways. But every single time someone asks us our advice for partnerships or what we recommend people thinking about before doing it, it is always 100% of the time, don't do it. It's hard to put into words what's very unique about our relationship. And I could definitely talk all day long about how we create boundaries and how our communication is wonderful, and the skills that we bring, how they complement each other, but don't step on each other's toes. There's definitely a lot of intricacies, but it is so hard to bottle up and find somewhere else. And neither of us were actively seeking a business partner when we found each other, and it just evolved naturally, and it just kind of happened. And that it's very hard to replicate that.
Yeah, I'd much rather talk about ethical ways to collaborate or grow your team and bring in strategic people that can help you grow your business, but I don't necessarily recommend giving away shares in your company.
Right.
No, that's really interesting. I love that insight. There are some designers listening who have partners, and a lot of them have something really unique, like what you have. And I see them and I say, wow, like I can't imagine having that, because like I just want to be in control. Like I can't imagine ever sharing that control with anyone. So it's probably very personality driven as well.
Well, and like typically what I see when it's coming from the space of I need a collaborator, I need someone, what you're actually saying is like, I need someone to help hold me accountable, or I need someone who's going to help push me. And there are roles that you can hire in your team of someone who can help you do that. Or there are exercises within yourself that you can manage your time a little better, or set different expectations, or give yourself different goals or whatever. I want you to really dig down to like, what is the benefit that you think is going to come from having a partnership? And can you get that benefit from anywhere else that's not as committed or giving something up so much in your business for that?
You can also just go after having really quality peers in your space and friends and
have a mastermind, be in a coaching program, like have an accountability group. There's so many different ways to tackle that.
Yeah. And I see that so much inside Power of Process. That's the course that I have for designers, that it's just an incredible community where everyone is supporting each other. And so you have that sounding board without actually being married to them the way you two say, like that you're married. So you have a sounding board of, it's not just anyone in the world, it's like-minded entrepreneurs that are going through or in the trenches with you and understand, what needs to happen in order to grow. And that's the power of community. And I love that you also share that ethos. I think that's awesome. Okay. So don't partner up. Got it. First takeaway. My goodness. Okay. So you started there and now you had courses. Were you teaching Trello or do you still do that?
Yeah. So we've had a wide variety of courses over the last 7 years. And I think the niche that we've kind of become known for is taking technology systems, specifically in both CRM and project management, and really breaking them down into bite-sized chunks and then adapting them to the way creatives think. And so Trello for Business was our first real viral sensation. We've had over 10,000 small business owners go through that program. And it is really set up to take what is a fairly standard project management system. It was originally designed for software engineers and that development process. And we took it and adapted the technology to put a lens through how you would operate it as a solopreneur. Since then, we've done a version that's more for teams, and we have Asana for Business inside of our Incubator program. We've been longtime partners with Dubsado, which is a very popular CRM platform for creative entrepreneurs, and many designers, I'm sure use that platform. And we'll look at technology like that and give you guys a lens for how to best utilize it. What are the best practices? How do you create a system around it? Because so often when you come into these technology platforms, they're really built to be adaptable and have a lot of different angles for how you could utilize it. And we come in and we're like, here's the playbook. Here's how you run the plays. Here's how you set it up. Here's the templates. Here's the exact strategy. And it makes a system that can be incredibly fluid and gives people more direction. And because of that, it's been really strategic, and has allowed people to scale a lot faster because they don't necessarily have to worry about figuring out the nuances of how something works. They have a framework that they can set up and work within. And while we've always had a spin that I think is very sales focused, like how do you optimize for sales? So much of it on the backside is how do you create a really powerful client experience that will give you the referral cycle to bring people back in and back around. And so everything we do has that operations kind of lens on top of it. But all of our courses and programs have either been a combination of breaking down technology or providing you the strategy and framework.
I love that. I don't even want to consider how many hundreds of hours I spent with my team over the last 7 years, trying different programs, trying to figure out how to use them. We started with Trello, did that for a little while. That was early on, though. Trello didn't have the features it has now. Then we moved to Asana. We currently use Asana. And I feel like it's only in the last year that I've cracked the code and figured out the best way to use it, because you're right. It is so overwhelming, the possibilities. That as a creative, especially, and I know this from personal experience, you don't even know which path to take. So
and you don't have time. Like that's not where you need to be putting your focus. You need to be putting your focus on having a really quality experience and delivering a quality result for your clients. And the back end operations need to be smooth and optimized and ethical and set you up for successful team communications and delegation and all of those things. But you don't you're not designed out of the gate with those skills. Like you weren't born and like, now you can be a project manager and run a company. Like everything you had to learn to become a business owner is things you've picked up over time, skills you've learned over time. And likely the skills that you have the most of and the most innate like ability around are the ones that started the business. So if you're an interior designer, you likely have a design eye. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have a systems focus. And our big thing is like, put you back in your zone of genius and focus less on all the other nuances and bring in strategic experts that can help partner with you to really streamline those aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Systems is my passion, which is so bizarre. Like you said, when you come into starting a business, you are the creator. You have these inherent talents. But then I realized very quickly that, oh, wow, there's a lot more that goes into running a business than just making pretty spaces and getting featured in magazines. It's total chaos behind the scenes. Like if you pull back the curtain in, let's say, 2017 of my business, holy heck, the poor people who worked for me, and I had a big team, they didn't know what was coming at them. And there were no expectations. There were no systems. We were freaking repeating. It was like a broken record, over and over again, reinventing the wheel. And it took me a long time to learn that. And so now I'm such a vocal supporter of establishing those systems. But I love that you don't have to start from scratch is what you're saying. Like there are ways that you can adopt what's out there, like what programs you have, and templates, and follow a path that someone else has created to save you the freaking time so that you can go back to picking fabrics, meeting your clients on site, scolding your contractor for not showing up or whatever the heck it is.
That's where you need to be spending your time.
Yeah. Well, because we like Abby's saying, like you're going to wear a lot of hats in the first year or so of your business, but you've got to start delegating those hats to systems, softwares, trainings, people as you move forward if you actually want to scale. And if this is not your zone of genius, then you don't need to try to crack the code on it.
Yeah. And I love that you say zone of genius. And I think anyone listening right now needs to maybe take a pause and take stock, because not everyone operates in the same zone of genius.
No,
I would say. And I've had designers in my community say, wow, I just had an epiphany that I really love the sales and I want to do the consultations, but I actually don't want to do the design.
Well, most creatives, whether they realize it or not, are actually either really great at their craft or they're really great at sales. And that's why they started their business. Very few, unless their craft happens to be operations, have any of those skill sets. You're either going to be great at picking the fabrics, like you're saying, or you're going to be really great at selling them that couch. But the likelihood of you being excellent by nature at both is not as typical. I'm not saying it's not possible. I know plenty of great sales people
doing both.
Yeah, you're absolutely doing both, but you probably naturally shine in one area over another.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think paying a little bit of attention to it, because the sooner you can recognize where your strengths lie, the sooner you can start to delegate or work with professionals, bring on a sales rep, whatever it is, whatever you need to do. Absolutely. Okay. I want to talk about this thing that we both obviously are in alignment on, which is the idea of having one signature service. At least I think that's what you're saying. And not because I'm such a huge proponent, and I know designers give me so much resistance. So maybe we could talk about that you don't need to have this smorgasbord of offerings. Yeah. And for those designers listening, I mean, you don't have to do one-off color consultations, hourly consulting, just decorating. I'm trying to think of a virtual service, like virtual e-design, implementation, I don't know, renderings, like the list goes on. And that's sort of how I see a lot of designers. And I think, and I would love to hear your take on it, ladies, but is that a lot of designers think, how else am I going to bring in the money? I want to make sure that I am offering what our clients want. So if they ask me for something, of course I say, yes, I can do it. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think I would like to hear Abby's perspective in the caveat of this conversation, because I do think that there is a caveat to this conversation with the current climate and the market that we exist in right now. So she'll share about that. But the idea of, the smorgasbord, our concept is, if you've ever been to the Cheesecake Factory and you've tried to order something from there, the menu is like 7 pages long and they're giant. They're bigger than my whole body. There's like so many appetizers, so many desserts, so many entrees, and you get overwhelmed with the decision, and you're afraid that you're going to make the wrong decision or you're going to regret your decision, and you're not sure if choosing this is actually going to fulfill all the needs that you have in that moment, right? And that's the very similar experience that we're providing our clients if we're offering the smorgasbord or the Cheesecake Factory.
Also, it makes you wonder if they're really good at anything. Like,
exactly.
Somebody who's able to do that many things, obviously.
Here's the difference, though, is you might be good at all of those things and your client might need all of those things. But if we're presenting them in this one-off, like a la carte menu style of you can get this today and this one in 2 weeks or this one in 6 months, it feels very unsatisfactory when we get our end result. What I want us to start thinking about is what is the actual problem, the whole problem that our clients have? And of that whole problem, what can my expertise solve? You may not be able to solve 100% of that problem. If you are not skilled in all of the areas that their problem have, that's fine. But if we're just offering them renderings, if we're just offering them color samples, whatever it might be, that scratches the itch of their problem, but they leave there being like, cool, I still don't feel fulfilled because you didn't actually listen or ask questions to the problem that I have and then create an offer based in your expertise that can solve that problem. So while we might have a skill set, a menu of skill sets that we know that we can offer, not every client needs all of those skill sets. So we present that client what we know that they need in order to solve the problem that they said that they had. So it might be taking something from here and from this department and that department, but the way that it's presented is one solution altogether in one time or space in one project. Now, the caveat to this is...
So there's a couple of things. So first, thinking about solving the whole problem, you have to know who you're solving it for. So say you're a designer who specializes in renderings, but your client is actually interior architects. Well, then you doing a rendering may be the entire solution. But if you are working with consumers who are doing new builds and they need to know every finish across their entire new home, you doing renderings is like the last step of the process. And they're like, but what tile do they need to install next week? I'm freaking out. Like, then that client's going to be left unsatisfied versus the interior architect that is picking all the potential finishes, and you're just showcasing the renderings because they don't have time to put that together because they're busy sourcing all the things and bossing contractors around. Great. Okay. So I want you focused on who are you actually working with and what is their problem, because who you're working with really determines what problems are going to pop up. The caveat that Emily keeps hinting at is we're in a unique economic time. And when that happens, we need to pay attention to the fact that it's much easier to retain this current set of clients we have today than it is to go after new ones. And so if we are in a growth period economically, I would say, have one signature service that walks them from point A to point Z and everything in between. And you have a clear process. You onboard and offboard a client. Great. But today, it may make more sense that you have something like that that's still your primary offer, but you have additional offers that are what we would call like complementary. They're either setting you up to do the bigger thing, or they're a good option on the back end of finishing your signature project to create additional streams of revenue to work with that client. So as an example, say your signature service is furniture design and layout, and your signature package is all around picking all the furniture throughout someone's home or a specific space. Now, your like additional offer that maybe you don't offer everyone is that you do go through all the purchasing and you actually set up the home and stage the home. That could be a good kind of annex offer that it could be separate from your signature offer, but is really complementary and it has an easy flow. So I want you to be careful though, because a lot of times when people start brainstorming all the additional ways they could help someone, they really go down the road of picking things that are so far removed from either their current client, so they're talking to an entirely different audience, or it's not touching on the same time and space that particular person might be in. So maybe it's a different stage, a different price point, and it makes it feel so separate that oftentimes you're starting to build an entirely other business.
Or the biggest mistake I see is they cannibalize their own freaking high-touch signature service by offering an offer that teaches you how to DIY that service.
Right.
So not only then are you talking to two completely different clientele, because the person who's going to DIY it is always going to want to DIY it. The person who's going to want to pay someone to do it for them is always going to want to be in the space to pay someone to do it for them. So those are literally two different people with two different behaviors and budgets and personality traits. So you're talking to two different audience members, but you're also confusing the people who would pay you for that to say, well, it is cheaper to just do it myself, so maybe I'll do that instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I really, really like this conversation, especially right now in the time and history that we're in. But I think it's so interesting to hear you say that. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm going to offer e-design. That seems logical. I do full service, high-end residential in Toronto, but sure, I could do e-design.
Sure.
And I'll tell you, it was a total flop. No one hired us. But I realized why, because my messaging wasn't to that person who wants to DIY it. And I really didn't want to do it. Let's be honest. It's just not me. Yeah. And so we pivoted, and instead, and I think this is what you're talking about, but then instead I said, let's just do virtual consultations, because the consultation is the starting point anyhow. They can pay us for that. And then when they're ready, they hire us for the full service. So it's like what you were saying, Abagail, it's like an add-on.
Yeah, you create an on-ramp or an off-ramp. And I like on-ramps that just highlight the problem, but don't offer the full solution. So getting paid for some sort of consultation or evaluation or assessment is a really good opportunity to really kind of get your feet wet, specifically thinking about the interior design space. It could be a consultation to have someone understand, can I take down these walls or these load bearing walls? Can I, what do I need to budget? Is it a budget planning thing where maybe they really desire this service, but they can't afford it today, but they would love a better understanding of what it would cost to do a full thing. And so you're kind of they're paying you to bid a future project. And I love anytime you can showcase your value, because you still need to give value. They still need to walk away with something tangible. But anytime you can highlight that problem, it really sets you up to work with them again in the future.
I love this conversation. I feel like designers listening right now, their wheels are spinning, because I know mine are. As you're talking, I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea. Ooh, boom, boom, boom. So this is a really great starting point to get people thinking. But back to the original conversation about having that one service. I just want to share an anecdote here, because I think it's speaking to what Emylee was saying. Whereas typically I do full service A to Z, because I'm in Canada, and instead of Z. And I know we're weird up here. and anyhow, but I had a client approach me that they didn't want the full service. They just wanted the design. I was like, well, I don't really know. It's outside of what we offer. But I thought, you know what? It might be, and I'm using air quotes for those who can't see me, a quick and easy money way to make money. Guess what? It wasn't.
What it ends up being is you don't get paid enough for doing the thing that you have to do.
So I felt that we over-delivered. We had a fixed fee. It was their basement. I don't want to say too much in case they're listening, but we were, we went so many iterations, more revisions than I just really wanted to offer value. And at the end, we sent them our survey. We always send an end of project survey to get feedback.
Are they unhappy?
And they were unhappy.
And so were you.
And I turned to my team and I was like, what the frack?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How is this even possible? I gave them more than was in their contract. And what they said in the survey was that they were disappointed because they expected they would receive more from us, even though they recognize they didn't hire us for full service. So I think it speaks straight to what you were saying, in that what they really needed was more than that service. But they didn't almost even recognize it. I probably should have held my ground and known that you're not going to get that value if you don't let us take it to the next level.
And that's when you know the actual problem that you're solving, that equips you in those sales conversations to say, I'm going to pump the brakes because you told me you want XYZ solved. In order for our team to effectively do that, here's what we need to do in order to make that happen. I'm the expert. I know what you need to solve this problem, and I can present it to you in a different way, or you can come back to me when your budget is in our, when you can afford us, basically. But we can either do this on ramp and we can just start with what I also know can help you prep for this bigger thing, or maybe we just aren't the right fit for each other.
And it's hard. It's so hard because usually you're pretty far in the sales process when stuff like this comes up and you feel like I've already invested so much time. I might as well get paid and do the project, but
you'll regret it.
You always underbid it because you're trying to meet their expectations, knowing that you're breaking your own kind of rules and boundaries. And you need to put yourself back in the driver's seat. Anyone who feels frustrated running a service-based business, it is either financially because you're not getting paid enough to do what you're offering, or you are letting your clients run your business and you have fallen away from being in charge of the direction and the process and the feedback and the approvals and all the things. It's one or the other. Very rarely is it anything else. I mean, not that other things don't cause issue, but not in the same like angsty, I want to quit and throw it all away kind of way. Usually it's either financially because things are backwards, or you are letting clients run your day to day, and you need to get back in the driver's seat. You need to get paid appropriately. And I want to help you do all of the above.
Yeah,
totally. Okay, I want to switch gears for a second. In one of the topics that you sent us for the podcast, it caught my attention and I will bite. How to get $60,000 additional revenue in 6 weeks without new leads. I have to ask the question, how the heck do you do that? Because I know, especially right now, more than ever, designers are thinking, okay, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The economy is slowing. It's going to catch up with our industry. We're a little bit late to the game, I think, because construction has been so booming. 2021 was a big year for our industry. And so a lot of designers are still riding the coattails of that, and that we're all still in projects that started last year. But there's this sort of fear of, what's coming next? Set us up for success and make us 60K. How do we do this? I'm biting.
Well, Abby could definitely work on some examples specifically for this industry, but I'll walk you through exactly how this happened for a client of ours. So like what we were talking about earlier, in the sense that anytime, not just in a downturn, anytime, it is more expensive to get a new lead than it is to generate more income from a client that you've already worked with, because it costs you money to vet a prospect, to nurture them, to hop on the calls, to present them proposals. All of that costs you money. And so if you don't have to do that, or if that window can be shortened because you've already built that trust, then that's what's going to increase your profitability from what you're pitching them. So what we had a client do, she's a social media manager. And so she had been working with clients for years, and a lot of them were on contracts that hadn't been revisited in a long time. So if any of your clients listening do have retainer clients in the design world, let's revisit those contracts. Let's look at what you're billing and what you're charging and what the deliverables are and what the scope is, because 9 times out of 10, it needs to be renegotiated. It needs to be reestablished. What you're actually doing isn't what you guys necessarily agreed on in the first place. What you're delivering, the price needs to increase because you haven't revisited it in years. And that was the case for our client. She had her own clients who their contract hadn't been revisited since she first started her business years ago. So you can imagine what you would have charged someone 7 years ago versus what you would charge them now. So imagine you still have that contract. So we helped her have some conversations and worked out actual scripts to customize the conversation that made sense for each client, to have a reestablishing expectations conversation. Some of those were in an in-person coffee date, some were over Zoom, some were on the phone, some were via email. It really just depended on what that client's behavior was like, what their personality was like. So we helped her craft some of those conversations. She reestablished scope, contracts, new rates, new expectations for 2023. What's the problem that you actually want to solve? Here's what our team needs to do in order to do that. We're going to remove some of these things. We're going to add some of these things. Everyone just got clear. And she presented her new rates, her new scope, her new offer to 6 clients. All 6 said yes. And in less than 6 weeks, she generated that $60,000 in additional revenue.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very powerful example, because I know designers are always worried about that conversation. Like, it's a repeat. The big thing in our industry, and then maybe Abagail, you could speak to this, is this idea of repeat clients. Yes, it's amazing. That's the dream. Yeah. However, oftentimes in interior design world, your repeat client, it's not like it's not like every other month. It's not like we're buying soap.
Right.
I don't go through soap that quickly.
No, sure.
That was a bad example.
No, absolutely. There's usually
like years.
Time and space. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm going to do the basement. And then 3 years later, I want help with a kitchen remodel. Like, I get that there's definitely time and space. If that's the case, you need to be operating with what's your new rates and what is your process in today in time. Yeah. I think I was trying to think of a good example of a retainer. The only one that came to mind specifically for your industry was like, if you're doing like staging, either on the residential side or even in like a retail space, you might have existing like ongoing clients. Maybe you work with the same real estate group again and again and again, and you're staging a lot of the same homes. Don't build the same for years at a time. You need to look at your rates every so often and really understand what's happening. But I do have a specific example. We were working with a client who very similarly needed to make some pricing adjustments, and it can be overwhelming to know that you need to make some radical changes. And in her experience, and I imagine many of your designers feel the same way, there's likely someone or something that is triggering the majority of your clients to come into your world. And for this particular interior designer, it was a home builder. So this home builder was essentially partnering with her for every residential build and saying, you're going to work with so-and-so, and they're going to help you pick all your finishes, and she bills on a square footage basis, and we're going to roll it into the house price and all the things. But the builder had gone into assuming, that this was her rate, that they were already selling the house with her services attached to it at a set rate. And she was like, whoa, we've been doing this for 6 to 9 months. And what we started at was mostly, show homes in a specific neighborhood. And now we've entirely switched gears into 5,000 plus square foot luxury homes that are completely custom. My services are not the same from one to the other. It's very different to make a home look presentable and sellable than it is to make every finish very specific to the client. And in her specific case, she was charging on a per square foot basis, which I imagine many of your people listening are doing as well. But I have a skill set, I would say, around creating calculators that help people determine pricing. And when we looked at it, if we really backed in her financial goals and what she needed to accomplish, and based on her client capacity, based on the time she was willing to spend, based on her financial goals, she needed to essentially double her per square foot price. And that was an intimidating ask. Like, you want me to just go to this builder who's doing 95% of my jobs and just tell them it's now double? And I was like, well, at the end of the day, they're not the ones paying you, the client is. So you just need to establish some rules around how this is going to work. So we coached her through
on their bill needs to just get bigger.
Yeah. We coached them on how to approach the builder and have the conversation. And the builder reasonably was like, seriously, like I've already dealt with this in lumber pricing. I've already dealt with this and other material costs. And now I'm going to have to deal with your price increases too. And was like understandably frustrated. And I was like, give him some space, but like not too much. We're going to give him like a week or two to let it sink in. And then we coached her on having a follow-up conversation. And in that conversation, they immediately adjusted her price 50% up and then put a date in time that was about 6 months in the future that she would hit that double rate, which essentially meant she needed no new business. It was going to be the same funnel of potential clients from this builder. And in less than 6 months, she will have essentially doubled her income without any new leads, without any more work. In fact, she gets to spend more time with her clients because she doesn't feel so rushed through the process because she isn't getting underpaid to deliver at the level they're expecting her to.
Yeah, that's so, wow, what a great example. First of all, every designer listening is like, how did she get the builder who just keeps referring her work? That is like
it's a dream scenario, right?
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
Yeah. Happy to have that conversation. She is in our incubator program. So
yeah. But it is so important to understand that, I mean, a lot of it comes down, I believe, to valuing your own worth as well. And understanding that you can charge more. Also, I mean, when I'm hearing you say your example, I'm thinking, so lumber's going up. Inflation is a real thing. Turn on the freaking news. It
impacts all of us, not just wood.
We can't even keep our rates the same and then pay more for everything else.
Right. Yeah, if you're gonna pay more for every single fixture, piece of furniture,
but not labor,
but not the like what?
Get over it.
If you just look at your personal increased costs, like inflation in the United States in the last 12 months has been close to 9%. If you just look at food, it's over 50%. So like you need to be getting paid more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or you're getting essentially paid less.
Yeah. If you do not raise your prices literally just for the cause of inflation, let alone like the value that you're providing, you're working for free.
Well, and the thing is, the reality is we're speaking mostly, I would say 99% of the listeners own their own business. These are not unionized workers.
Right.
These are not employees who are going to go to their boss and request a raise. You have to request it from your clients.
Yeah.
You have to stand up for your value and your worth. And
it's not about a request. This is my new rate.
Yeah. You're right. It's not requesting it. It's not demanding it, but it's just stating it. This is it. And this is what it costs to work with us. And then being confident. And I think that's what it sounds like you've been coaching your own members on, is coaching them on scripts. Like I heard you say the word script, like how brilliant. That's what everybody wants. Like that is what I see hold people back all the time. Well, how do I say it? How do I approach my client? What if they don't like me anymore? Right? Because we're all such people pleasers.
Well, and here's what I want to reframe part of this conversation, or the language that we're using, that will actually help, because it has a domino effect on your pricing and your confidence and everything in between. You are not pricing or figuring out the value of your worth. That is literally immeasurable. If I charge what I was worth, no one on this planet could afford me, because I'm the best at what I do and I am worth a shit ton of money. But y'all don't have that, and I get that. So I'm going to price for the market, or for the problem I'm solving, or for the impact that this solved problem now has on your business, or whatever. There's a lot of factors going into this. A big part of that factor are my financial needs and my goals and my time and my capacity. And we factor all of that in within the calculator that Abagail built for our own clients. Your worth has nothing to do with that, because there's a big separation that women and femmes, that creative business owners need to do in separating our literal value and worth of our humanness and our skills from what we offer our clients, because they are not connected. They are not the same. And as soon as we begin to separate those, we can begin to look at pricing and those conversations around pricing more logistically and more factual, and more of what is literally required for me to live. That's not a worth conversation. That's a live conversation. And it helps boost that confidence when you're having those conversations.
Yeah, I love that you said that. It's factual. You're right. Like when you run a business, and I think a lot of us tend to be more emotional. I know I'm certainly one of the more emotional entrepreneurs who take things personally. I remember my husband used to say to me, "Why are you taking it so personally? It's just business."
It's so personal.
I thought she was going to be with me forever.
You were taught to make it emotional. You were even in school. You were taught to make it emotional, and men and not just this country, but in many countries around the world, we're just taught to think differently. And so, not that I'm saying go out there and adopt the white men mentality. That's literally not what I'm suggesting at all. But you do have some unlearning to do. Like you have to come from a factual place in certain areas of decision making in life. And it takes some time to walk away from that when you are literally wired to think from a feeling place, a nurturing place, a caring place. You can be a kind person and still charge appropriately so that you can live the lifestyle that you want. Those can be two very separate things. And whether your business succeeds or fails has no bearing on your personal self-worth as a person or your abilities or any of that.
Yeah. I love that you just said that. Thank you for saying that. I think a lot of people need to hear that. It's a good reminder. And that's where the numbers don't, I always say the numbers don't lie. I did a series on the podcast called Know Your Numbers with my own operations manager, where we walked people through real basics of the numbers. And it's something that has taken me some time to learn as a creative. Yeah. Wanting to look at the numbers and spreadsheets and calculators and all that to really understand. And my operations managers really helped me because I was never going to do it for myself. I needed her to come in and help me do it. Understand like what goes into running my business. Yeah. Okay. And now what is the profit I want to make? How much do I want to pay myself? How much do I want to reinvest? And all those numbers then spit out another number. Yep. And you realize, shoot, I can't take on that project at that rate because I will not be profitable. Exactly. And at a certain point, you have to recognize as a business owner that we're in business not for fun. Most of us, right? If you are, then it's a hobby and good for you.
Yeah. You can still have fun at work, but that it has to be for a purpose. And I see so many people walking around they're missing so much of the nuances that are critical to truly knowing and understanding their finances. And without that information, they're walking blindly through some very important conversations that are going to set them up for future success or failure.
Yeah. Finlit is a huge foundation of all of our strategies and conversations we're having with clients because we have to, we have a methodology that we teach here where we walk people through facts and feelings because you do have to measure both when you're making strategic decisions and you're making plans. We can't ignore the actual facts on the table. We also can't ignore the feelings that some of those facts make us have or what some price points that we need to be at, what that makes us have or whatever. How much time we have to spend on our business in this season. We can't ignore all of those things. But when they're measured as equally as possible, we're able to honor ourselves on both ends of the spectrum. We know our needs are being taken care of financially and that we're growing ethically. And if you have a team and you're undercharging, you're running your business unethically. I'm going to have a hard conversation with you inside of our program about that if that's what you're doing. We're doing it accidentally. We're not doing it with malicious intent, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still happening. And so we need to be measuring what we actually want out of our business and our life versus what we need to do in order to make that happen.
Love it. Love it. Oh my God. I could have this conversation all day, but we don't have all day. Okay. I want to, before we wrap up our time together, I want to give you lots of time to answer my last question, which is a nugget of wisdom. Like what last nugget of wisdom would you leave our listeners with today? I feel like we've already had so many nuggets to be. I've jotted things down in my notebook. I'm like, ooh, that's good because I want to really give you guys a good shout out. But so many things we've talked about. Obviously, just working with partners, not to do that. The power of investing in your business. considering one service offering versus maybe adding something on, but not making it like it's a cheese factory smorgasbord. We've covered so many areas when it comes to, pricing and how to get in front of your clients. But what else is there without diving too deep down a rabbit hole?
Yeah, if anything, I just want to bring you back to the moment that we discussed talking about solving the whole problem. Because if your goal is to increase client satisfaction as well as your enjoyment at work, the more satisfied customers or clients that you have, the more satisfied you're going to feel at your job, which just has a direct correlation to you enjoying your life and business and your clients leaving and feeling like they got what they paid for, which in turn leads to more referrals, which leads to better ideal clients. And so I need you, for the love of God, to sit down and really assess the work you've been doing, even in the last 6 months. What have been your favorite projects to work on? What problem did the client present to you when they walked in the door? And how were you solving their problem? And did you actually solve the whole thing, or did they walk away feeling like there was a piece of it that was left on the table? And I want you to think more holistically if you can find patterns, because so much of this is about patterns. Who are the people that are consistently coming up as your more ideal fits? How can we find the patterns there? Of that, what are they consistently saying their problem is? What is the consistent problem we're trying to solve? How can I consistently create a process so that I can show up and solve the whole problem and have a very clear expectations? So when the client walks away, they know that we accomplished everything that we talked about in the beginning, and that the scope was really clear and the deliverables were really clear. And I did my job and I feel good about the job I did. I feel adequately paid for the work I did, and thus feel really good about asking them for referrals. I think really thinking through the problem solution, if you do nothing else, is going to get you so much closer to being happy, satisfied, and appropriately paid in your business.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'll add is bringing us back to the systems conversation, and something that we say all the time with our clients is you have to spend time to make time. And systems and processes and behind the scenes, even if you're hiring it out, is going to require your energy and your brain and your assistance in order to make happen. I think the thing that systems can do for so many of us, especially in that first, 1 to 3 years of business, is really serve as almost an employee that costs exponentially less if we utilize it properly. And I know a lot of us, especially the ideas that we generated today, you're like, okay, well, if I could implement a lot of these things if I had more time, and I'd only have more time if I hire more people on my team, but I don't know how to organize all of that. And we really need to take a pause and take a step back to put a pause and create the systems and processes first before we start growing. And honestly, the work that a thorough workflow and process and even project management system can do for you as sort of like a part-time admin level of work, it truly is, when it's set up properly, will really surprise you with what leaves your brain, that you stop having to think about over and over again, and how you have to stop reinventing the wheel every single time. And if we can just get you there so you can take a breath, so that we can actually assess what you need in order to really ethically grow and sustain, then it will feel more from a place of empowerment instead of hurrying to kind of catch up. And if I could try to remove that hurried urgency from all of us, I would. And that's truly what systems and processes can do for you.
Ugh, I love it. You are speaking my love language. Thank you so much to both Abagail and Emylee for joining me today on the podcast. Would you please let all of our listeners know where they can find and follow you and sign up for your incredible programs?
Yeah, you can listen to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're the Strategy Hour. Definitely subscribe, listen, and review. Would love to have you guys. We definitely focus on strategy in business and talk to a broad, more service-based listenership. So you guys are absolutely included in that group. If you want to learn from us, we have incredible resources on our website at Boss Project, hundreds and hundreds of blogs, hundreds and hundreds more podcasts in the archives. And our programs run the gamut, kind of based on your needs. You're welcome to DM us at any time, and we're happy to help fit you in the right direction on what we think might be best served for you. But if you're interested in the incubator or those specific calculators I talked about, getting help on pricing, getting help on setting up a service that solves the whole problem, then I encourage you to go to bossproject.com/scale, fill out a short application, and you and I are going to have a conversation. We're going to figure out what is the next step for you. And if it makes sense, I will end up sending you a really in-depth training that talks more about creating the price point and the service that ultimately is really in alignment with solving the whole problem, and all of that with the systems and operations lens to fulfill on it on the back end. So I look forward to chatting with you over at Boss Project on Instagram, and I wish you guys luck. There's so many cool projects to be had this coming year, and I can't wait to see what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I think these two women have an incredible knack for understanding the power of systems and really communicating the importance of that sort of back end in your business. And not only that, but also the sales focus. I mean, we are nothing without sales. One of the big takeaways for me was this distinction between repeat or existing clients versus brand new leads, cold leads, if you will, and how we get the most bang for our buck when we invest in those existing clients, those repeat clients. I love the conversation about raising your rates and how we all need to do it on a regular basis. Like, if you haven't raised your rates or your fees or whatever you want to call them in the last year, you might want to reevaluate. This is my own personal opinion. The rest of the world is charging more for everything. You are likely paying top dollar for a freelancer or your employees, or you are paying top dollar for your renderings and even the products, right? So think about that. All of your software as a service, everything has gone up. You need to make sure that you are still profitable. You know that I say it all the time, having one signature service, or as I like to call it, one core offering, is definitely the way to go. But I think there's an opportunity, and I've said this before, and I said this inside Candid Corner last week. So if you missed that Candid Corner live video inside our Designer Meetups Facebook group, go back and watch some of them. I go live there once a week on Wednesdays to answer questions. And I was talking about how sometimes we do need to just tweak our offering a little or add something else in, because when times slow down, we ultimately still need to pay the bills. And so being strategic in the way that Abagail and Emylee say, I think is super smart. I love the idea of on-ramp or off-ramp. My example, I think, was perfect, if I do say so myself. But what I do think is it reminded me of that time in 2020 when I was like, I'm going to do e-design. But it really didn't make sense because it wasn't the same target client. If I wanted to go down that route, I would almost need to create a whole separate website and Instagram, because it is a different client. And so having a virtual consultation or something at the beginning, I loved their idea of having a budgeting offering, meaning that you have either a meeting or a service where you pull together the numbers for a client. Yes, clients should pay you for that. Just going to remind you, that is not something you should do for free with your proposal. That is time consuming. I think that's an incredible idea for an offer on the front end of your service. All right. I think this was a great episode. I hope you enjoyed it too. Go check out their podcast, The Strategy Hour, and let me know there's no comments. So just let me know, send me a DM. I love it when you guys respond to me and say, hey, you asked for my opinion. Here it is. Please do that. I love to connect with you in person. And don't forget, power of process is the answer to an interior designer's need for systems. That is exactly what we teach inside Power of Process. So when it becomes available, I highly encourage you to consider joining us because we will walk you through the exact systems you need to build out inside your business. And if you want to take it to the next level, this incubator that's offered by Boss Project sounds phenomenal. So definitely check out all the offerings. At a time like this, investing in yourself, in coaching, in personal and professional development always pays off. Okay, that's all I got for you today. I'll see you soon.